Good afternoon. I don't think I need to remind this group that neurodegenerative diseases have a socioeconomic burden exceeding $800 billion in the US alone. To make a small contribution to this, Newronika has developed the world's most advanced deep brain stimulation system. And if you have never seen one, you can play around with one later. This is an implant that will get into your chest. So what is deep brain stimulation? Deep brain stimulation essentially is a pacemaker, just like a cardiac pacemaker, but instead of the wires going to the heart, they go into the brain. And it's used to treat Parkinson's disease. Today, this is a $1 billion market, but the total addressable market in Parkinson's alone should be about $3.6 billion. So how do we get from $1 billion market to the $3.6 billion market? Well, we need to address the barriers of adoption. Even the best deep brain stimulation trials showed that when patients have deep brain stimulation, they still experience symptom fluctuation throughout the day or experience stimulation-induced side effects. The best clinical trials showed about 70% of the time of waking hours, patients will be symptom-free without side effects, but that means they still experience either symptoms or side effects for 30% of the time. The systems, because they're open loop today, need to be adjusted frequently by the neurologist, which is time-consuming and creates patient burden. And finally, most deep brain stimulation systems today are primary cell devices, so they need to be replaced every couple of years, which is expensive and carries risks of infection. So can technology really address these barriers of adoption? So I already mentioned DBS is essentially a pacemaker for the brain. So what can we learn from pacemakers? So today, if you need a pacemaker, or anyone in the developed world needs a pacemaker, in 95% of the cases, they will get a pacemaker. There are no barriers of adoption. So if we look at what happened in cardiac pacemakers, very early on, it was viewed that adaptive pacing was important. Even in the 60s, there was the first adaptive cardiac pacemakers. And then additional sensors were built into pacemakers. So you got rate-responsive cardiac pacing and eventually remote patient management. So these are the issues that had not been previously addressed in deep brain stimulation. So neither a closed-loop system was available, nor was there the ability to remotely manage patients. So for our system, which I just showed you, we put together these design criteria. Number one, we wanted precision medicine. So the patient would receive the right amount of stimulation every minute, every day, every year. We wanted remote patient monitoring. We wanted to build a cloud-based database because we can sense brain sensing data. And I know we have EEG representation here, and obviously their work where they are very familiar with having very long-term data, but we are already sitting on more than 40,000 hours of continuous real-life brain recording data. We wanted upgradable implants. So when new algorithms come along, we want to be able to upgrade the system with these new algorithms. We wanted device longevity. Therefore, our system is rechargeable. And we wanted a platform technology that wasn't just applicable to Parkinson's, but also to epilepsy, pain, incontinence, possibly even Alzheimer's. So how does this work? Well, the good news is that you can use the traditional brain target, which is the subthalamic nucleus, to sense a biomarker. This biomarker is a power biomarker. It's a very strong activity in the beta range, which is highly associated with the therapeutic state of a patient. So we can use this biomarker to automatically adjust the stimulation parameters in the stimulator. And that is all done on the IPG. There's no external device required. The system automatically adjusts stimulation. So this is our system. I already showed you the IPG and the leads that are sit in the brain, the clinician programmer to initially set up the system. That's similar to, looks just like any other DBS system. The magic is below in that each time the patient recharges their system, all that brain sensing data is taken from the IPG and uploaded via this patient app to a cloud-based data management system, where that then can be integrated with other data, such as wearable data. Parkinson's, after all, is a movement disorder, and eventually EEG data and patient self-reported outcomes. So this piece then gets us the remote patient management. So why is this really important? So here's a little bit of physiology. So when the patient takes medication, say in the morning, they take a lot of levodopa, carbidopa, and they often get overdosed, and then in the morning eventually will develop a side effect called dyskinesia. The medication wears off, they get into the off state and cycle through these on-off transitions and side effects. Traditional DBS reduces these fluctuations, mostly because DBS actually reduces the need for medication. Therefore, there will be less fluctuation, but they are not eliminated because DBS continuously stimulates at the same level. Well, we're reversing this. Our system senses the drug state or the physiological state within the brain and automatically adjusts stimulation parameters to keep the patient in this beautiful window of efficacy without side effects. So does it work? So this is data from our feasibility trial that we have also now used to submit for MDR compliant CE mark for adaptive DBS. We already have CE mark for conventional DBS. In that trial, we know that 9 out of 10 patients prefer adaptive over conventional DBS. This was a blinded crossover study. We reached 92% of waking hours of perfect therapy, meaning efficacy without side effects, which is 2.4 hours better than the best clinical trial out there, where patients achieve about 70% of waking hours of perfect therapy. So I hope I convinced you that we're addressing these barriers of adoption, unlocking this potential path to the $3.6 billion market. But it is a platform technology. I mentioned this earlier, platform is important. So today we're in Parkinson's. We're probably going to go into epilepsy next. So if there's any partners that are interested to fund our epilepsy program, I would be interested in discussing this. We can go into pain, probably central pain, not necessarily peripheral pain, incontinence, Alzheimer's, depression, all those kinds of indications that are currently being investigated, where DBS is actually investigated in. So what about an exit? So we could go through traditional DBS players or neuromodulation players like an Abbott, a Boston Scientific, Medtronic, and so on, and really deliver to them this most advanced approach to adaptive deep brain stimulation. Today, the only major company that has an entry in DBS, in adaptive DBS, is Medtronic, but our system is superior to Medtronic's system. But the exit partners that I'm a little bit more excited about are those players that are today in the neurosurgical space, but do not have an implant yet. So we can go to them and say, you have a sales force, you have all the tools for the implantation, we give you the implant. Of course, we can also do an IPO in 2027, because unlike some other therapies like spinal cord stimulation, DBS is fairly centralized in few medical centers, so we could launch our own sales force and commercial strategy. Okay, so what do we need the money for? Oops, can I go back? Okay, so we are finishing our European feasibility trial. We have now submitted for CE mark. We think we will get our CE mark sometime in 2024 with some technology changes we're making. So it's not only the clinical data, but it's also some technology, and can launch in Europe in 2025. We're also starting our pivotal trial now. We have all of our centers lined up for the pivotal trial, but the trial, because of regulatory approvals and so on, will probably start in Q2 of this year. As I mentioned, we need a little bit more cash to do some incremental product improvements. Those are really incremental things like costs down, a better lead, slight modifications to our programming system. So that will be done, creating a second exit window for Europe in 2026. And in 2026, 2027, we will be able to go for FDA approval in an exit or IPO. So we're raising 30 million in our Series B. 10 million euros have been committed so far, but we require a lead. So the $10 million, unfortunately, are not done by investors that will set the valuation. We have a platform technology with a massive addressable market. We have proprietary technology. All this is patented, of course, and then multiple exit options as early as literally next year, more likely 2027. Thank you.